He was the ultimate outsider. The peanut farmer who rose to the presidency, promising honesty and integrity in the wake of Watergate, later becoming a global symbol of humanitarianism. Jimmy Carter built his life on unwavering moral conviction. But the untold story is how his 4 children navigated the intense, often brutal spotlight that came with that conviction, facing political attacks, personal stumbles, and the immense pressure of being Carters. What truly became of the heirs to this unique American political legacy? The sons who chased politics and business, and the little girl who grew up in the White House only to become a public activist. Welcome. You clicked on this video because you know the president who defied easy labels, but you sense the real human drama lies within the family that shared his extraordinary journey. In this exhaustive, deeply researched documentary, we will tell the complete multi-generational and largely untold story of all 4 of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter's children. We will explore the path of the eldest son, John William Jack Carter, the Navy veteran turned lawyer and politician. We will delve into the life of the second son, James Earl Chip Carter III, who lived and worked at the heart of the political machine. We will uncover the story of the third son, Donald Jeffrey Jeff Carter, the computer expert who chose a quieter path. And we will follow the unique trajectory of the youngest child and only daughter, Amy Lynn Carter, the little girl who captivated the nation from the White House and grew into a determined activist. To bring you this incredible, sprawling family saga, we have gone far beyond the political headlines and the nostalgic images. We have meticulously researched the Carter presidential archives, analyzed memoirs written by Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, consulted numerous biographies and contemporary news accounts, spanning over half a century, investigated the public careers and occasional controversies of the children, and respected the privacy sought by family members. This is not just a superficial, "Where are they now?" It is a deep, unflinching exploration of the profound impact of growing up Carter. The unique blend of Southern roots, intense political scrutiny, deep family loyalty, and the constant negotiation between public service and private life. Prepare to understand the full, complex, and deeply human story behind the Carter heirs. Number 4. The eldest son. The political hopeful, John William Jack Carter. The Carter children's story begins with the firstborn son arriving just after World War II, destined to carry the weight of being the eldest in a family driven by ambition and service. He would follow his father's path into the Navy, then pursue law and politics, aiming for high office himself, only to find his journey marked by both earnest effort and the long shadow of political controversy. Born John William Carter on July 3, 1947, in Portsmouth, Virginia. Jack was the first child of Jimmy and Rosalind Carter. His arrival came during his father's active service as a U.S. Navy officer, a period that saw the young family moving frequently between naval bases. Jack's earliest years were spent experiencing the transient life of a military family before his father, upon the death of Earl Carter Sr. In 1953, made the pivotal decision to resign his naval commission and return to Plains, Georgia, to take over the family peanut farming and warehouse business. Jack therefore spent a significant portion of his childhood and adolescence grounded in the rural South, experiencing the family's deep roots in Plains and witnessing his father's growing involvement in local and state politics, from the school board to the Georgia State Senate. Like his father, Jack pursued higher education and military service. He initially attended the Georgia Institute of Technology, studying nuclear physics, a demanding field, reflecting perhaps an early intellectual inclination, separate from politics. However, the Vietnam War intervened. Jack enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1968, serving a tour of duty in Vietnam aboard a landing ship tank, LST, the USS Grapple. His service during this deeply divisive conflict was honorable, fulfilling a sense of duty, though the experience undoubtedly shaped his perspective. After his discharge in 1970, he returned to Georgia Tech, shifting his academic focus. He then went on to earn a Juris Doctor J.D. degree from the University of Georgia School of Law in 1975. This path, military service followed by law, mirrored the trajectory of many aspiring politicians of his generation. During his father's unlikely and ultimately successful campaign for the presidency in 1976, Jack, along with his brothers, played an active role traveling the country, speaking on his father's behalf and helping to introduce the relatively unknown Georgia governor to the nation. He was present during the whirlwind transition from Plains peanut farmer to President of the United States, experiencing the intense excitement and scrutiny firsthand. After his father left the White House in 1981, Jack Carter embarked on his own career blending law and business. He worked as an attorney and became involved in various business ventures. He also maintained his political interests, settling eventually in Nevada. It was here, decades after his father's presidency, that Jack made his most significant bid for public office. In 2006, he won the Democratic nomination for the U.S. Senate seat in Nevada, challenging the incumbent Republican John Ensign. His campaign attracted national attention, inevitably, focusing on his famous name and connection to his father, who actively campaigned for him. Jack ran on a platform emphasizing issues like renewable energy healthcare reform and fiscal responsibility. He presented himself as a moderate Democrat, hoping to appeal to Nevada's independent voters. However, the race took place during a challenging political climate for Democrats in Nevada, and he faced a well-funded incumbent. Jack Carter ultimately lost the election to Ensign by a significant margin, approximately 55% to 41%. Jack Carter's career has not been without controversy, particularly regarding his business dealings. In the late 1980s and early 1990s, during the savings and loan crisis, he was involved with the Calhoun First National Bank in Georgia, which eventually failed. While investigations did not lead to charges against Carter, his association with the failed institution drew negative attention and scrutiny, highlighting the potential pitfalls for presidential children engaging in business under the public eye. There were also later reports concerning investment ventures in Nevada that faced questions, though formal charges were not pursued. These incidents became fodder during his Senate campaign, used by opponents to question his judgment and business ethics. His personal life also saw changes. His first marriage to Juliet Judy Langford Carter ended in divorce, and he later remarried to Elizabeth Brassfield. He has 2 children from his first marriage, Jason and Sarah. His son, Jason Carter, successfully followed the family tradition into Georgia politics, serving in the state Senate and running unsuccessfully for governor in 2014, with Jack often seen supporting his son's campaigns. The untold story of Jack Carter is the story of the eldest son navigating the most conventional path: military, law, politics, business, yet finding that the immense weight and unique political baggage of the Carter name were both a significant asset and a formidable obstacle. He served his country, built a legal career, and bravely sought high office, but ultimately found his own political ambitions unfulfilled, perhaps overshadowed by his father's legacy and complicated by business controversies. He represents the dutiful son who followed the expected path, but discovered the shadow was longer and more complex than perhaps anticipated. Jack Carter followed the path into politics, facing its inherent challenges. His younger brother Chip, however, would immerse himself even more deeply in the political world, living and working at the very center of the Carter campaigns and administration, experiencing both the exhilaration and the turbulence up close. Number 3, the son at the center, James Earl, Chip Carter III. While the eldest son pursued a more traditional trajectory, the second son plunged headfirst into the exhilarating chaos of his father's political world. He wasn't just a supporter. He was an insider living in the White House, working for the party, embodying the youthful energy of the Carter era. But this proximity to power would also expose him to intense scrutiny and personal challenges that would follow him for decades. Born James Earl Carter III on April 12, 1950 in Honolulu, Hawaii during his father's naval service, Chip was the second son. Like Jack, he spent his early years moving with the Navy before settling into life in Plains, Georgia. He grew up deeply immersed in the family's peanut business and his father's burgeoning political career, perhaps even more so than his older brother. Chip seemed to thrive on the energy of politics and campaigning, developing a personable, outgoing style. He was arguably the most politically active of the sons during his father's rise. He worked extensively on Jimmy Carter's campaigns for governor of Georgia, and most significantly during the grueling 1976 presidential campaign. He traveled tirelessly across the country, serving as a charismatic surrogate for his father, particularly connecting with younger voters and grassroots organizers. His youthful energy and down-to-earth style helped humanize the relatively unknown candidate and contributed significantly to the campaign's momentum. When his father won the presidency, Chip, then in his mid-20s, moved into the White House with his first wife, Karen Griffin Carter, and their young son, James Earl Carter IV. Living in the executive mansion provided an extraordinary immersive experience in the workings of the presidency. Unlike his older brother Jack, who was pursuing his own career, Chip remained more directly involved in the political sphere. He worked for the Democratic National Committee (DNC), leveraging his connections and campaign experience to support the party's activities. He also served as an informal advisor and emissary for his father, sometimes traveling on goodwill missions or meeting with various groups, acting as a bridge between the White House and younger demographics or specific constituencies. His presence in the White House, along with his young family, contributed to the Carter administration's image of down-to-earth family values, a deliberate contrast to the perceived imperial presidency of the Nixon years. However, life in the White House fishbowl also brought intense scrutiny to Chip's personal life. His marriage to Karen ended in divorce during his father's term, generating tabloid headlines. His social life and business dealings were subject to speculation and occasional criticism. There were reports, for instance, surrounding his involvement with figures connected to the BCCI banking scandal later on, though no wrongdoing was proven. He seemed to struggle at times with the transition from campaign trail energy to the more structured, high-stakes environment of Washington, D.C. After his father left office, Chip Carter's life continued to be marked by both political involvement and significant personal and professional challenges. He remained active in Democratic politics, working on campaigns and consulting. He engaged in various business ventures, though consistent financial success proved elusive, leading to periods of reported difficulty. His second marriage to Ginger Hodges Carter also ended in divorce. He has another child, Margaret Alicia Carter, from this marriage. Like many individuals who experience the intense highs and lows of national politics, Chip reportedly battled personal demons. In later years, he spoke with remarkable candor about his struggles with alcohol and drug addiction, particularly during and after the White House years. He credited his eventual recovery to his family's support and his own determination, becoming an advocate for addiction awareness and treatment. This honesty about his struggles added a layer of human vulnerability to the often polished image of presidential families. Despite these personal challenges, Chip remained a dedicated son and a passionate defender of his father's legacy. He became involved with the Carter Center, his parents' influential nonprofit organization, focused on democracy, human rights, and public health initiatives around the world. He also remained engaged in political commentary and community activities, often speaking about his experiences during the Carter presidency. Chip Carter's scandals were primarily related to his divorces, reported financial struggles, and his acknowledged battles with addiction, the personal fallout often magnified by the political spotlight. The untold story of Chip Carter is the story of the son who lived closest to the flame of political power. He experienced the exhilaration of the campaign trail and the unique pressures of the White House firsthand. His journey reflects the intense personal cost that can accompany a life lived at the center of American politics, but also the possibility of recovery and finding purpose beyond the initial whirlwind. He is the political son, the insider, whose life reflects both the triumphs and the turbulence of the Carter era. Chip Carter lived his life largely within the political arena, facing its pressures head-on. His younger brother, however, would choose a markedly different path, drawn not to campaigns or commerce, but to the emerging world of technology, finding his niche far from Washington, D.C. Number 2. The son of science, the quiet innovator, Donald Jeffrey. Jeff Carter. The third son arrived during his father's early years in Georgia politics, while his older brothers would engage directly with the political and business worlds associated with the family name. His fascination lay elsewhere, in the precise data-driven realm of geography and the burgeoning power of computers. His journey would be one of quiet innovation, building a successful career largely outside the traditional Carter sphere. Born Donald Jeffrey Carter on August 18, 1952, in New London, Connecticut, during his father's brief return to naval service after his own father's death overseeing submarine construction, Jeff spent most of his childhood in Plains, Georgia. He grew up experiencing his father's rise through the Georgia State Senate and governorship. Like his brothers, he was involved in the family's peanut business and participated in campaign activities. He was a young adult studying at Georgia State University when his father launched his improbable bid for the presidency. Jeff's primary interest, however, was not politics, but geography and the emerging field of computer science. He majored in geography with a focus on computer mapping. This academic path set him apart from his politically and legally inclined older brothers. He possessed a more analytical, perhaps technical mindset. During his father's presidency, Jeff, while supportive, maintained a lower public profile than Chip. He was completing his studies and reportedly felt less drawn to the constant political maneuvering of Washington. He married Annette Jane Davis during his father's term, and they lived for a time in the White House, but largely stayed out of the political fray. However, his expertise in computer mapping proved unexpectedly valuable. After his father left the White House, Jeff co-founded a company called Computer Mapping Consultants in the early 1980s. Significantly, his primary partner in this venture was his father, Jimmy Carter. This collaboration represented a unique father-son partnership, blending Jeff's technical expertise with his father's post-presidential connections and interest in global issues. The company focused on using computer technology for geographic information systems, GIS, a field that was then relatively new, but held immense potential for applications in urban planning, environmental analysis, international development, and monitoring human rights issues. Areas that aligned perfectly with Jimmy Carter's post-presidency focus through the Carter Center. This venture eventually evolved or led to other related work. Jeff Carter became a respected consultant in the field of computer mapping and GIS. His career was built on genuine expertise, allowing him to achieve professional success based on his skills, rather than solely relying on his family name. He co-founded another company, InfoCore, focusing on similar technological applications, leveraging the power of data analysis. Compared to his older brothers, Jeff Carter has lived a life remarkably free of public controversies or scandal. He and his wife Annette raised their children, including son Josh, who has also been involved in politics, largely outside the media glare. He has consistently maintained a low public profile, rarely giving interviews or making public appearances unrelated to his professional work or occasional family events. The untold story of Jeff Carter is his successful creation of a distinct professional identity in a field completely separate from traditional politics or the usual paths taken by presidential offspring. He represents the intellectual, perhaps more introverted side of the Carter family. He took the family's emphasis on hard work and service and applied it to the world of science and technology. His quiet success and his ability to maintain privacy demonstrate another way of navigating the immense legacy of the Carter name. By building expertise in a specialized field and letting the work speak for itself. He is the son who chose data over debate maps over mandates. Jeff Carter found his niche in the quiet world of technology. But the final Carter child, the youngest and only daughter, would experience a childhood unlike any of her brothers. Growing up literally inside the White House under the most intense media spotlight imaginable. A unique upbringing that would forge a fiercely independent and often defiant spirit. Number 1. The White House child, the public activist, Amy Lynn Carter. And finally, the youngest child, the only daughter who arrived years after her brothers. She wasn't just a visitor to the White House. She grew up there, her childhood unfolding on the world stage. She was America's little girl, expected perhaps to be a quiet princess. But Amy Carter would defy all expectations, transforming from the shy first daughter into a passionate, outspoken political activist, unafraid to challenge the establishment, even when it brought controversy crashing down upon her famous name. Born Amy Lynn Carter on October 19, 1967, in Plains, Georgia. She was significantly younger than her brothers. Jack was 20 when she was born. Her arrival came as her father was already a prominent figure in Georgia politics, having served in the state Senate and run unsuccessfully the first time for governor. Unlike her brothers who remembered the peanut farm and the early struggles. Amy's earliest memories were likely of the Georgia governor's mansion in Atlanta. She was just 9 years old when her father was elected president, making her the youngest child to live in the White House since the Kennedy children, John Jr. and Caroline, nearly 2 decades earlier. Her presence immediately captivated the nation. The media focus on her was intense, documenting her life, with a level of detail her older brothers had largely avoided. Everything from her enrollment in a public elementary school in Washington, D.C., the Stevens Elementary School. A significant statement by her parents about integration and public education. Her treehouse on the South Lawn, built by her father. Her reading books during state dinners to her Siamese cat. Misty Malarkey Yin Yang became national news. She was America's surrogate little sister, a symbol of youthful innocence within the often austere walls of power. Her parents, particularly Rosalind, worked hard to provide her with a normal childhood under these extraordinary circumstances, limiting media access and insisting on privacy. After leaving the White House in 1981 at age 13, Amy returned to Atlanta for high school. It was during her later teenage years in college that her public persona shifted dramatically. She shed the image of the quiet first daughter and emerged as a passionate political activist, aligning herself with progressive and often radical causes, seemingly influenced more by the counterculture movements than by mainstream Democratic politics. She attended Brown University, but was reportedly dismissed in 1987 due to academic issues stemming from her focus on activism. Her activism became highly publicized and often controversial. She participated in numerous protests against apartheid in South Africa and U.S. foreign policy in Central America. Most notably, she was arrested several times during protests against CIA recruitment on college campuses and South African embassy demonstrations. In 1987, she and activist Abby Hoffman, a famous figure from the 1960s counterculture, were put on trial in Northampton, Massachusetts, for trespassing and disorderly conduct during a protest against CIA recruitment at the University of Massachusetts Amherst. They employed the necessity defense, arguing their actions were necessary to protest the CIA's illegal activities in Central America and elsewhere. Remarkably, they were acquitted by a jury, a major victory that drew significant media attention and highlighted Amy's commitment to her causes. Amy's activism during this period was often seen as a direct challenge to the establishment, and sometimes even implicitly critical of aspects of her father's own, more moderate political legacy. Her willingness to be arrested and publicly challenge authority stood in stark contrast to the traditional image of a former first daughter. This period marked her most significant scandal, not one of personal misconduct, but of political defiance that generated both praise from fellow activists and criticism from those who saw her actions as naive, disrespectful, or embarrassing to her family. After her most intense period of activism, Amy Carter pursued a quieter, more artistic path, though her commitment to social justice likely remained. She earned a master's degree in art history from the Tulane University in New Orleans. She illustrated her father's 1995 children's book, The Little Baby Snoogle Fleeger. She married computer consultant James Wenzel in 1996, and they had a son, Hugo James Wenzel. For many years, she lived a relatively private life in the Atlanta area, working at a bookstore and focusing on her family, largely avoiding the media spotlight she had known so intensely as a child and young activist. In recent years, following her divorce from Wenzel, Amy has occasionally re-emerged slightly more into public view, often in support of her family, particularly during her father's recent health challenges or related causes, but always maintaining a careful boundary of privacy. Her son Hugo gained some public attention, competing on a reality TV show claimed to fame in 2023, briefly bringing the family back into the pop culture conversation. The untold story of Amy Carter is the remarkable journey of the White House child who refused to be defined by that role. She navigated the unique pressures of growing up under a global microscope, emerged as a fiercely independent activist who challenged the status quo and ultimately found a way to build a private, meaningful life on her own terms. She represents the most unconventional path among the Carter children, a testament to the family's underlying values of conscience and conviction, even when expressed in ways that defied political norms. She was the little girl who read books at state dinners and grew up to question the state itself. The four lives, branching from Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, shaped by politics, business, technology, activism, and the enduring search for purpose, paint a uniquely American portrait of a first family navigating the modern era. Their story, rooted in the South but played out on the world stage, highlights the diverse ways children of power grapple with legacy and expectation. This theme resonates powerfully with the story of another dynamic presidential family who dominated the American consciousness earlier in the century. That family belonged to the force of nature, Theodore Roosevelt. On this channel previously, we explored the fascinating and often dramatic lives of Theodore Roosevelt's 6 children. Did you know that the heirs of the bull moose included a rebellious socialite princess, multiple war heroes, one earning a Medal of Honor, another dying tragically in combat, a troubled explorer, a dedicated nurse, and a staunch conservative activist? Their diverse and strenuous lives offer a captivating look at another iconic presidential dynasty, spanning war, adventure, and political evolution. The full untold story of the Roosevelt children is one you won't want to miss. Click the video on your screen right now to uncover that incredible untold story. And as always, thank you for watching.